ladies and gentlemen, filmmakers and moviegoers alike, welcome to this week's episode of Critically Casual. I'm your host, Free Cuffs, and joining me as always is the amazing Dorky Dev. Say hi, Dev.
Hello.
Hi. How are you doing today?
Here, let me close the door real quick.
Oh.
So fans not going in the background.
You
There we go.
considerate.
Forgot about that for a second.
Yeah, it's okay. Hi, Dev.
Hi. I've been looking forward to this week.
I know. It's only like you've talked about it every single week since before we announced Shia LaBeouf.
Honestly, I've been looking more forward to this next week than this week because one of them I haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part of me that enjoys this trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much wrong with it. But there's so much that could be good in it. And it's just painful. But in a way that can be entertaining.
That's true. So, I guess with that being said, let's talk about this week. This week I've titled it Smells Like Diesel. Because we're talking about Transformers 1, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen as number 2, and then Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon. Not Dark Side of the Moon.
First triple week in a while.
Yeah. So, with that being said, and all talked about, is there anything else before we start talking about our first movie?
No, this was our first triple week since Hobbit.
That was last month, right?
That was 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
That was the end of April.
I mean, if you remember, when we first started the show, I said 2 is always better. So,
I mean, I agree, but there are certain times where 3 just helps us get along with something that, like, if we didn't do 3 of them, we'd be here fucking forever.
that's probably true. You imagine those shows
Not to say that I don't want to knock out, like, multiple episodes in one episode, but there are certain times where it's just like, can we just
imagine those
get through
shows
this?
that only go through one movie at a time. Like, oh, God.
I mean, some of them do really well, in my opinion.
I know, but yeah, they'll take... It's just that we're not good enough. I see how it is.
I just don't want to spend 2+ hours. Because if we do 2+, we would... If we were doing the original way the show was, where we broke down the plot a lot more...
We didn't really break down the plot, though. We summarized the movie, and it took us 45 minutes.
Yes, but to be fair, that's what In Review is from Kind of Funny. But they commentate, they throw their own commentary over what what they're feeling through that part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it works that way. I think it doesn't work great for us because we get into arguments.
That's all we do. We never agree. We always argue.
Nope, never, not once.
Mm-hmm. Until the end, when we have the same exact score.
I'm gonna be curious because what I'm gonna do at the end of this year, I'm gonna average out the year, what our film score was.
Mine's definitely going to be lower.
Oh, yours is gonna be lower, but I'm gonna see what overall our score was for the year.
The average score for the year. Steven
Yes.
thought it was a terrible year at an average of 5. Dev gave it a
better.
10.
Fuck you! Not this year, man. We've watched some we haven't watched shit. We've watched some meh movies this year. This week falls right into that category.
So let's start. What's the first movie then? Let's hop right on in, or pop into gear and drive right on in.
Let me take you back to July 3rd, 2007. When Transformers 1 dropped in box offices with a budget of 150 million estimated, opening weekend in the US 70 million, gross US of 300 million, and worldwide accumulated gross 709 million. Man, do these... I'm gonna warn you now, these get fucking ridiculous as this franchise goes on. For some fucking reason. Okay, straight out of the gate, I remember growing up, and I remember when I watched this the first time in theaters. I was like, okay, this is a good start. Hindsight, no. Because, man, it takes a fucking hour for the Autobots to show up.
It does. Like, Watching all of these movies,
Oh.
my overall complaint, and I'm just going to say it right here at the very beginning, but it's not especially true in this movie, but just generally, because it's true in this movie and it's true in all the others, these just take too much fucking time.
Oh, without a doubt.
I don't know. During this movie specifically, I remember sitting here watching a lot of this movie and only really finding two scenes super interesting myself. Like, my two favorite scenes in this movie are the scorpion in the desert and the chase scene on the highway towards the end.
Oh, when the thing goes to the bus?
I believe so, yes.
When the thing transforms with the big, like, claw thing
Less
and goes to the
spoilers,
bus?
Dev.
I'm sorry. It's been gift how many times?
I don't care. This is the non-spoilery part.
Fine, non-spoiler part, whatever. I agree. Honestly, and I actually really like the opening of this movie with the helicopter and stuff, with blackouts.
I think I like that.
I think it's a good intro.
I think I would.
What they needed to do, well, I'm going to explain why I think it's a good intro. If they had done this different, is they shouldn't have, as much as I think Shia is kind of entertaining in this, maybe we should have stuck with the military guys.
See, I don't disagree. At the same time, my complaint was I would started the movie with the military guys, where this movie
did
kind of. It starts with a brief explanation. By
You
Optimus
always
Prime.
need your Optimus. My name is Optimus Prime. Our civilization
Sure.
was fighting a civil war for decades.
I feel like this movie would have been better if it started with the mystery with the helicopter at first. And it's like, what's going on? Something's not right here. And then it clicked all from there. Like, and then you could insert the Optimus Prime part. Sure.
I could see that, yeah. But my only counter is that it is a staple of the franchise for Optimus to be the intro. And kind of introduce you to this world.
Yep.
And it's just, as someone who loves the voice of Optimus Prime, because they got the guy who played him in everything else to play Optimus.
Yeah, it's the same Optimus. He's been playing Optimus for years.
Yeah, so, like, automatically, you're like, yes, this feels like Peter Cullen, there it is, who's been playing Optimus for freaking ever. And, I mean, they got Hugo Weaving to play Megatron, which was really cool as well, because you kind of hear that in it. Like, if you know it's Hugo Weaving, you hear a little bit of Hugo Weaving, but it's snarl. And, like if he played Smog, that's how I imagine this Megatron voice. You know what I mean? Well, okay, so, beyond that, though, I think that, like, I don't think there's any terrible actors in this. I just think Michael Bay sucks. I'm gonna put that out here right now. Michael Bay fucking sucks.
I both agree and disagree with that. Like, some of the things that happen in this movie, and even in all of the movies, are definitely questionable. Like, One Shot, for instance, I know it's in the next movie, but I'm going to say it now anyways, because it bugs me, it's the opening scene where Megan Fox is painting a decal on a motorcycle.
And it's just...
ass. Yeah, it's like...
That's Michael Bay's fucking, like, he's a terrible person. And I'm pretty sure that's how he gets off. So he puts it in his movies. Because he wants movies that everyone can enjoy. So an ass in your face, everyone can enjoy that, right?
Even ladies will love a good woman's ass. According to Michael Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, LaBelle, by the way.
So, with this movie, I'm gonna break down what I think is great and what it's not.
Okay.
Bumblebee's and Optimus's designs are perfect for a more modern take on them because they stick out.
My quick caveat, though, to that is one thing I am disappointed is we don't really get to see Bumblebee transform. Like, it's kind of the thing that we see in all of these movies. If they're trying to show off a brand new looking car, you will not see it transform. So like when you first see
Yeah.
Bumblebee, like in his old jalopy form, I guess is the best way to put it. Sure, you can see him.
Dude, that Camaro's awesome. Why
Yeah.
would you change?
I mean,
I loved that Camaro, and
I
I
liked it
wanted,
too.
like, if he had stayed that Camaro the entire movie, I would have been fine with it.
but then once he became the new Camaro or whatever he became, uh,
Yeah.
I
The
don't know
2007
cars.
Camaro.
Yeah. Like ever after that point, we never saw him actually transition between vehicles. But still, that being said, the vehicles that we got and the designs that we got for the characters, I liked. I don't like the eyes though. I thought the eyes were a little too much detail. But
I feel, yeah, I would have rather. Well, it's tough because they're trying to do a realistic take, but also I kind of like the old school kind of just like their lights.
yeah,
On
I
the,
almost
the
feel
cartoons.
I almost feel like I would have preferred like it still had eyebrows and all this stuff still could have moved, but I would have preferred like a shade really over.
But also they wanted you to be able to see where they're looking and stuff like that to give some of that, so, and it's harder to do that with that. My complaint about design though is that the Decepticons all look the fucking same.
They do. That I think that's a thing that they talk about in the behind the scenes for this movies is that all the Decepticons look the same, and that's why they make sure that none of the Autobots actually fly because they need to be able to distinguish the Autobots between the Decepticons.
And that's where they made their mistake. Give the villains color too. That's something that made them in the cartoons. That made them pop, like Starscream,
Purple.
perfect. No, that
Megatron.
Megatron had purple. Starscream was gray, red, black. Give him that red accent. Give him that gray silver. Give him that black helmet. Like, make him stick out. Because him and Megatron standing next to each other as both primarily plane-based things in this movie, they are indistinguishable from each other in moments. Except for that Megatron is bigger.
I was about to say, yeah, at moments, the reason why I could tell them apart is because Starscream is an upside-down triangle. While
That is
Megatron
true. He's
is
a
actually
Dorito.
a person.
But the thing is, make him that classic Dorito then. That he's from the show. I don't know. That's I think one of my problems with it is that like the designs of things just don't always work. Like Jazz, when he's fighting Decepticons, blends in because he's a silver Pontiac. Like he just blends in. And even Ironhide, who I think is cool as hell, but because he's bulky, like a lot of the Decepticons are, and he's a black GMC like truck, he blends in with the rest of them. The only ones that stick out Autobot wise, and it's throughout the franchise, is Ratchet, Bumblebee, Optimus. They're the three that no matter what scene you're in, you're like, okay, I can see them.
Yeah.
Only caveat is, in this one, if Bumblebee and Ratchet are near each other sometimes, because they're both primarily yellow, in this one, they get a little like, if they're fighting the same thing, is like, oh, where the fuck did they go? Which one's which? They fix that later by making Ratchet a little bit more neon in the later ones, but there are certain scenes where I'm just like, okay, that like it takes me a moment to register which one's which, because they're not exactly the same color, but it's close enough in a big action scene where it's just explosions and shit that they blend in with each other a little bit. And I think that's my biggest problem is that just design wise, and this doesn't feel like a Transformers movie because they're primarily cars throughout it, and B, they are in the movie for about half of it. At least the Autobots.
Like
B's in the beginning half of the movie, but like he transforms after the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, like the first movie I thought had quite an interesting bit of promise to it because
Yes, I still think that.
yeah, like thinking about the way, but when I think down to all the specifics of this film, there's like nothing that really calls to me that I really really enjoy. Like or moments that make me think, yes, this is 100% a Transformers movie. And the only reason why I would think that now is because we've had 6 movies directed by Michael Bay. Well, not technically 6, 5.5, I'll say, because Bumblebee wasn't technically directed by Michael Bay. But we've had 5 movies that were all Transformers was excessive explosions. So I could say over time, this is definitely what Transformers has become. But
Yeah.
thinking back to like the cartoons that I used to love watching when I was a kid, and I especially want to talk about parts when we get to the second movie. But like they start integrating things from the cartoons that when we were kids into the movies, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they took stuff from the older cartoons into the newer movies as well, and like they at least they took some inspirations, but it was definitely
They
adapted.
didn't. But my problem with them taking some inspiration is that they didn't stay true to some of those inspirations. If that makes sense. Um, like with a lot of the Decepticons are nameless. They have names because they need to sell toys, but in this one, they said that Devastator was that one that gets that from the highway scene.
Hmm.
But Devastator shows up in the next one as the big one.
Oh, the big yeah.
Yeah. So like there's they don't even know which ones are which themselves, and it bothers me some.
They just
'Cause
pick
it's
a
also,
name
like,
for a toy, and they're like, "Yeah, let's go with it."
yeah. And then like the fact that Blackout I'm pretty sure dies at the end of this one, but he's in the next one because there's a helicopter that shows up that looks identical to Blackout.
Mhm.
And I'm like, didn't weren't you wait.
Maybe I mean, I'm not gonna say anything against that, only because plot happens and things like that happen.
Yeah, but not to nameless characters. Not that Blackout is entirely
I was
nameless.
about to say, obviously
but
he's not nameless if you know his name.
I know his name because I know the fucking Transformers a little bit. Like I'm no expert Transformer fan, but I know enough about Transformers to be like, okay, that's Blackout. Okay, that's Starscream. That's, Devastator. And it's just like they don't feel like they have personality. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
They don't feel like okay, my good comparison was, you remember when we watched Bumblebee?
Mm-hmm.
How those two Decepticons felt like characters in the movie?
Mhm.
None of the Decepticons really feel like that.
Not even
We don't see the
Megatron.
That's the only one, maybe. But even then, he's, again, not in the film long enough, in my opinion. Like, he shows up in the last fourth, roughly?
It
I'd
seems
say third, fourth.
something like that. I honestly can't really. I didn't write it down in my notes when Megatron shows up. But this seems like you're having the same problem with Transformers that I was having with the Godzilla movies.
I knew that's where this was going to go, by the way. I knew exactly where that was going to go.
Of course.
I think, well, my reasoning with that is why I'm okay with it with Godzilla and not here is because Godzilla's a monster movie
Mm-hmm.
that is like Godzilla, like the first Godzilla movie. You are waiting for Godzilla to show up because you don't know if he's the big bad or the big good, right? Because it's Godzilla. And B, giant monsters are cooler to reveal later in the movie, in my opinion. If you don't immediately show everything, you show glimpses like they did with the airport scenes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Build up to it. And yes, they should have probably introduced it a little bit earlier. I still agree on that point, but I still like the build up to that point. With the Transformers, on the other hand, they're supposed to be our main characters. Because in like the shows and stuff, the humans are side characters. They're not the protagonists.
I mean, there's been a lot of modern Transformers cartoons that I've actually watched. Like Netflix had one that was canceled.
But they start making the humans more protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
Notice that's after 2007 for most of these, though. Before 2007, the humans, like, they would have arcs, but they weren't the primary character for every episode. Mm-hmm. Most times it would be like, if we're talking like the era when I really watched Transformers, would have been like the 2000s during that when like Hot Shot was on there a lot, or Hot Rod was on there a lot. I had a Hot Rod and it was fucking awesome. It's a Transformer, and then I had a Dinobot. It was so cool.
Nerd.
Wish I could have had more. Man, hell yeah, dude. Transformers are fucking dope. I got more into Legos though, so Bionicles and stuff. But that's something else I want to bring up. The Transformers design look like Bionicles.
I thought that more in the second movie than I did this movie.
When I'll say this movie, it's when the arrival to Earth. Which, by the way, the music for this movie is really cool,
Yeah.
in my opinion, especially Arrival to Earth. That is one of my favorites. Ba 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 bum 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 bum, and just the meteors coming, and it's a cool moment, but it doesn't feel as epic as it should because we've been sitting around for an hour.
Like, because I have different complaints ultimately. Like, my complaints are mainly like, I would have changed this in the story, or I would have done this differently in this moment of the film, or
I mean, I have plenty of those.
yeah,
too.
no worries. But like, I'm not really bugged out that they changed who the main character of the movie was, or like I'm not really, because I like this is the same thing with I guess this is a kind of similar comparison to me and the Superman movie, because they have established what this movie was going to be, which this is a movie about the human around the aliens, around the
Okay, and I'm okay with that. But we also have 6 other human plots going on.
Kind of.
We got the Secretary of Defense.
Mm-hmm.
We got the hackers. We got the military guys. We got Sector 7. And then we got Shia LaBeouf.
Are there hackers in the first movie?
Yeah, that's the one with the hackers and the donuts and all that. That's this movie.
I was
You have like 5 human subplots going on. And yes, they intersect with each
yeah,
other.
they all intersect and they all end at the same time.
But there's 5 human plot lines going on at the same time.
I guess that's true. Like, once again, like I kind of just, I guess this week, because I was not really super interested, and at no point was I ever super grasped, I'm just kind of here.
Fair enough.
I don't have much to say, honestly. Like, all of these movies, to me, ultimately are the exact same. None of them are memorable. and we could end the review there for me, honestly. Like, I'm just kidding.
Well, for me, the other thing, too, is just like... So, kind of funny put it in a way that I actually think would have worked better. Reduce how many human subplots there are, okay?
Of course. Less plot, the better.
Yes. Well,
You know
kind
what
of.
I mean.
Yeah. Because you could have made the hacker, the 2 hackers, someone in the military, right? Made that part of their plot line. You could have made our protagonist someone in the military. Because, they're fighting Decepticons. It would be kind of no-brainer that they would run into an Autobot fighting the Decepticons, and then they team up. Reduce, like... And I'm not saying, like, Shia's not a bad protagonist. If we're going to go that route, get to the plot faster. Because we spend a lot of this movie doing high school dumb bullshit.
This whole movie is just filled with dumb, like let's see, there's the high school romance, and then there's the high school story arc. Then we finally get to Transformer stuff, but in between all of the Transformer stuff, there's 30 minutes of one battle, and then we have some conversation about some exposition about what's about to happen, and then there's 40 minutes of the same battle, and then there's exposition upon what we need to do next to end this movie, and then there's 30 more minutes of battle.
It's not even that much battle. You are overhyping the battles in this movie, because this movie has one like 10-minute fight maybe with Bumblebee. You've got no fighting for the next bit because they do the whole high school bullshit, sneak into the house. Then they get, the whole thing where they had the bridge and the fall. Which, by the way, Bumblebee should try out for the outfield. With how many times throughout this franchise he has to catch someone. Because he does it pretty much every movie.
It's his hero pose.
It's his hero pose. I got you! I got you! Sam! So, like, every, like, and we go so long before they, talk about Megatron, before we get the Allspark. like officially before all of that. And then even then, we don't even get into the fight because it's a driving montage that happens where you get the Michael Bay driving shots that we got from Bad Boys. While they all group up, and then you get the first fight. You get to the city, and then you actually fight. Like, it takes
this is
fucking
just full
forever.
of bullshit. It's just nonsense,
It
and it
is.
takes like this first movie.
This
according
2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours. The next movie, 2 hours and 42 minutes. The movie after that, 2 hours and 38 minutes. Like, each and every one of these movies is over 2 hours and 15 minutes long. I would cut out at least half an hour out of all of these films and be happy.
You could cut at least an hour.
That might be a little much.
Well, you could cut an hour of it. Just change the plots a little. You just need to do some reshoots. But yeah, I mean that's just my thoughts on it. Like it's got some hopeful beginnings to it, but it doesn't capitalize on it. Because it doesn't feel like the problem is that there's never like the moments that's supposed to be the Autobots are here should have been like 15 to 30 minutes sooner. And also make Bumblebee talk.
But he does talk.
It's a funny gimmick, but like, man, it gets old after a while. Because they also like, spoiler, they don't explain why it's broken in the next one.
They don't explain it until the prequel movie, Bumblebee.
Well, no. I'm saying like, because at the end of this, remember he has that moment where he talks.
No, yeah, and they don't explain it. They talk it away in the next movie, which I can explain once we get to the next movie.
I mean, yes, they explain it, but they don't explain it like, well, why is it malfunctioning? Why isn't it working still? Because Ratchet's a good fucking doctor. You're making my boy Ratchet look bad. Ratchet's one of my favorites, by the way.
I was about to say, you're getting into this is my childhood, and you're ruining it, and I am nostalgic, and I'm going to rate you lower because you changed everything.
And? Like, the problem is there's not consistency either throughout this thing.
Like,
which
that
we'll
one,
get.
I was about to say, that I don't disagree with, because one of my big complaints with this movie is moments like in the fighting where we'll see them with shotguns pumping shotgun pellets through walls and it looks like it's nothing, and we'll see a tank, which is a Decepticon, fire out of its main barrel, and it'll hit a car, and like they're hiding behind that car, or maybe one car behind that car, and nothing happens when that tank shot explodes. But as soon as that transformer transforms into his like Decepticon self, that tank blast is like 5 times more powerful. And it's like,
it's because they can shoot the actual Decepticon artillery when they switch over.
totally.
That's just common Transformers knowledge. I'm joking, by the way. I have no fucking idea. Because it doesn't. There's no consistency. Because you would think that the Decepticon would be able to shoot their normal rounds out of their barrel if they're in tank mode.
I'm pretty sure that like they do it at moments when they need to be dramatic. Like they'll underpower the weapons whenever the people need to talk. We're like, all right, we're huddled behind this car because I need to tell you about what's about to happen in the movie's plot line, so you understand why we're about to do this. Okay, and then the next explosion will be huge because they feel like they can do it.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. That's just how Michael Bay directs, though. Just inconsistencies. But yeah, like again, I feel like there was hope for this franchise at one point, that it could have been something. Then,
are we done?
Then
here?
other things happened.
Is it time to move on to the ratings of this movie and head to the next one then?
Whenever you want to give me my popcorn.
Sure, you can have 10. How many you want to give them?
I'm giving it 7.5. Because designs are cool, the acting's not terrible, pacing's garbo, plot's not really there, but it's middle of the road enough that it's not offensive. if that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
And some of the action's cool, like, and the soundtrack is kicking. My friend and I used to have this on our iPods, the soundtrack to this movie. So
Don't blame you. So yeah, I would give this movie a 6.5.
that's probably what I thought you would give it.
It's
Run into a nice little 7.
yeah, it's totally fine. It starts off with some interesting moments. It has some nice ideas. It has some it does at least one or two scenes of interesting camera work that I can enjoy. Like I said, my two favorite moments were the Desert Scorpion and the later freeway chase. But ultimately, yeah, it's just too much filler, too much Michael Bay. We need to blow stuff up in the middle. Yeah, they could have done better. So yeah, 6.5, and we'll move on to our next movie, which is Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Cause
Let me take you back to June 24th of 2009, when I realized this franchise was gonna be shit. With a budget of $200 million, U.S. opening weekend made $108 million, with gross U.S. at $400 million, and worldwide at $836 million. So it made a pretty penny, to say the least. Man. This movie just starts throwing shit out the window that they established in the last one, and just goes, fuck it. From the get-go. With our Optimus Prime intro being, we thought that when we arrived, we were the first contact with the humans.
oh yeah, that.
But it turns out that the Cybertronians have been here before.
I mean, if you want to get into it, we could be like, hey, that last movie, Transformers, their intro then was wrong too, because Bumblebee
without a doubt.
has a different intro for everything as well. So yeah, but I don't blame
What the
you.
fuck?
This was an instant moment when they kind of retconned it a bit, but I kind of excused it.
It's kind of excusable in this one, I'll say that.
Yeah, I only excuse it in this movie because in the last movie, Megatron exists. He was found frozen deep in the Arctic, and he had been there for however many thousands of years. So it's like, it makes sense that, of course, there's a reason why Megatron was here in the first place. So
The problem is that this starts my primary issue with the Transformers franchise, other than Michael Bay's directing, is that every single one of these movies goes, oh, but there's more history that the Transformers were a part of. Every single fucking time. And it's like, what didn't the Transformers participate in? Please, fucking tell me. Because this starts it, and then the next one continues on it, and then the next ones continue on it from there. Like, they just keep going and going like, oh, well, actually, the Transformers were here during this as well. And I'm like, dude, make up your minds. Like, please.
like, are you saying that they do that constantly throughout this movie, or?
I'm talking about franchise.
Okay.
Because this sets the precedent. It's excusable in the second movie because your first movie, you don't know if it's going to be the make or break. You're trying to figure it out. I can understand some retconning in the second movie, okay? Because you that's where you continue to establish your universe. But when you retcon after retcon after retcon, I'm like, dude.
I'm confused. Aren't we still just talking about Revenge of the Fallen?
Yes, but this is where it starts.
I hear you, yeah.
So that's why I have a problem with it. When it happened, I didn't have a problem because it was just the second movie. But in hindsight being 2020, I'm like, bro, this starts it all, and you just thought that every movie, if you wanted to change something, you're like, oh, we just changed history again! I'm like, come on, because they do it in the next one, too.
I don't see this yet at the moment.
They do it in the next one.
Watching this movie, when I watched it, as I watched it, yes, They changed what they said from the first movie to the second movie.
Yes.
Every movie does that. So, like, almost every single movie will be like, this happened between this time and that time, and this actually happened here, and, like, I'm not gonna, in this instance, I'm not gonna be like, God, this is terrible because they retconned it, and I'm not gonna say it's extra terrible because they will continuously do retconning in the future, because I am grading this movie individually.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing you.
No,
as the person who, like, as the casual, who tends to be in a nerdy shit, that it's one of my problems, is when you don't have a consistent, like try to follow the Transformers timeline from when you watch the first one to when you watch through the fifth one. Because I know some of the stuff that happens in the fifth one, even though I haven't seen it. I know some of the stuff that they talk about during the past. I'm not going to spoil that, but it continues the issues that we have here. That start here, I'll say. Because it wasn't a problem in this one, because, again, they were establishing their lore to their universe. And it would make sense that maybe there was lost history and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, turns out this is what happened. I mean, that we had been here before.
They establish in this movie that all of their history was in the cube. All of it. It's a line that is stated. So this all makes sense that they don't know what's happening. Like,
well, I feel like someone would have passed some information along.
It was all in the cube. That was the knowledge. Like, we go through things all the time, like, even in modern history. Currently, we'll stumble upon something that's like, oh wow, why is this here? There's this random civilization of people that we've never known existed. Why wasn't there a written history about them? Like, we in every, like, fantasy movie, why the hell was there a sword in this stone? Why the heck does he have to get this compass to be able to see where he's going? Like, there's always a story behind the story that's happening.
Yes, I'm not arguing that.
Okay.
What I'm arguing more is that when, like, you brought up pirates, they don't consistently change the history of their franchise, though. If that makes sense, every movie doesn't go back and go, well, technically during this time, if it's a character's backstory, yeah, they introduce some stuff, like with Davy Jones and stuff. Or in the fifth one, which I haven't seen, I just know that Jack meets the guy who is the villain in that at one point during their past. But that doesn't change the history of Captain Jack Sparrow and the pirate world, right? That just means that, like, these two cross paths. They're like, when we get there, I think I can hit this point harder next week. So I'm not going to hammer it too much further this week. Okay. All right? I'm just going to say that it's setting up the precedence for what comes later. Which is what I take an issue with now. Because I know what happens later now. Like, that's my thing. Like, I know I should judge this on its own, but I don't do that. That's just how I've always done things. It's why we're different. We're still going to end up being within a point margin of each other in this fucking movie. This is just how it is.
Probably, yeah.
God. Trex and the Raptors had feathers, but due to the series being old, it was left... Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They wanted the dinosaurs to look cooler, so they made them scaly. And then that's what everyone thinks they look like, but actually, technically, they'd be more feathered beasts.
Okay, but other things I want to talk about. Like, you mentioned that they'll just retcon things through exposition, of course. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about, is they constantly do... It happens a lot more in this movie than it did in the last movie, where they'll explain what they need to do next or what's happening for what reason to a character. And it's like, for the audience, I mean, for you here specifically, this person who I don't know, kidnapped, I guess?
Yeah. Especially through Jetfire and Optimus.
Yeah. And that happened... like that happens constantly in this movie, so that bugs me. One thing I thought was silly as well was they do a lot of well, not a lot of conversations. There's at least one scene specifically that I thought of where they have conversations through webcams, kind of like me and Dev are doing, but the webcams have strategic cuts for well-timed and fastest close-ups, like, and now close up, I am in charge. Then back to normal instantly, just like that, and it's like, what? Why? Who would do that? Why would you do that in a live conference call? As you can tell,
Yeah.
that nothing ever like that happens in the middle of a live conference call. We just no sudden zooms and unzooms, never.
Why? Why did you?
Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
No,
Can't you tell? Hi, everybody. This is how Zooming works in a conference call.
I hate it here. But like, yeah, no, there was that too, and just can we also say, man, introducing the twins as these just
Yeah, twins were terrible. I just literally when
man.
they were introduced, all I could write was, "Oh."
yeah, no,
Especially just their design and the way they talk and what they do.
man, that was
Awful.
really racist choices by Michael Bay there.
And it just continually happens where there's just random choices in there. Like, who the hell has a super sleazy astronomy 101 teacher?
My God, what the fuck, Dwight?
Yes.
And
then this is
someone,
also...
I watched someone talk about it, and they compared it to, was this, because Steven Spielberg is attached to this franchise.
I was about to say, I thought that was supposed to be a reference to Indiana Jones.
Potentially, but at the same time, it does not come off as that at all.
It's nowhere near... it's an illusion, I guess, where the girls find the teacher attractive, but the only difference is Indiana Jones was like, ugh, and he kind of stayed away from the girls.
But he also, and there was moments where he was completely oblivious to it.
Yeah, and then this is a teacher who's always like, and now I will thrust you into the throbbing world of...
No.
And
Drop
she,
kick.
yeah. She, thank you. Yeah. And his terminology is always just so blatantly...
In front of the dean?
Yeah. I'm sitting there. The dean's fucking watching him give class to freshman girls. Being like, yes, insertion of knowledge.
That teacher's having that professor's getting a lawsuit.
No, he's probably tenured. He's fine. Burn on education system. But this is also
reality sets in.
But this is also a movie that establishes things like robots are attracted to the humans now. Or at least certain robots are. And
that there's robots that turn into humans.
Yes. And we never see it again.
Why do that?
That was one of the moments that I actually really enjoyed. But they only, once again, this was one of the things where it's like, oh, you see this interesting transformation that we can do? We're barely going to do it.
Barely do it. Never do it again. And it breaks so much because it's just like, yeah, that would really put them in disguise. But do we know who is and who isn't? And the problem with that, too, is that, like, they don't use it again.
Nope.
Why? Why introduce it then? It's... Or you know what I'm kind of pissed they never used in this movie besides the one time? Is the Thinbot.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to see more of.
That thing was cool. I remember seeing that in the theater being like, that's a cool design.
Yeah, especially how it starts.
When do we... Yeah.
I'm not going to get into
We got to see it again?
No.
No. Cool.
But that's okay. We'll get other interesting
things. We'll get the Scorpion bot back.
Yeah, for a second. But we'll get that cool cartoon thing that happens with the flying and the without spoilers. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's cool, but at the same time, they should have made Jetfire actually young. And
yeah.
Jetfire and have them combine and cool. I don't know, man. They just they do so much that doesn't work. And The Fallen. The Fallen is such a just weak ass choice of villain.
He wasn't even really a villain at all in this movie.
No.
He shows up for 30 seconds and talks. He shows up again for 30 seconds and talks. He shows up on Earth for 30 seconds and talks. Interacts with our characters for maybe 3 minutes, and then the end of the movie happens. Like, he was not a villain. This movie's villain was just the road trip really itself, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
maybe the villain was, in this case, the U.S. government. Like, it's really hard to say what the point of this movie was, especially because,
and we still run into some of the same issues when they introduced Sideswipe, who I think has an awesome design. My little brother actually had the Sideswipe transformer, and it was really dope because it went like the blades, the doors turn into the blades that he can throw and stuff, and it's cool. But why do we keep making them the same color or similar colors to the Decepticons? Because when they fight, who's who?
They probably wanted to do more nameless Decepticons than named Decepticons, only because what happens in this movie is just the sheer, like, I don't know any other characters in television history where we cheer for them mutilating people as much as Optimus Prime mutilates his own species. Like, he literally rips a man's face in half with flaming hooks.
It was badass.
Yes, you're not wrong. But at the same time, is Optimus really a hero?
Dude, slowly but surely through these movies, I'm also trying to try to convince you that Optimus starts out as a good person, but as time goes on, he becomes like Batman from Batman v Superman.
I mean, never mind the fact when he actually turns evil with his purple eyes, but whatever.
No, I'm not even not even speaking about that. He becomes a vigilante. But like with this movie too, like the whole thing with the spark,
The old spark.
the shards. Fucking, we get a moment with it. Sorry. We get a moment with it, and it's then becomes irrelevant after a little bit, because can we stop making it so the heroes like get like all of the knowledge imbued into their brains and stuff like that? I really hate that trope.
I agree and I disagree simultaneously because I don't like it because it makes the thing from before kind of really pointless and useless. Because especially in this movie, at one point they mentioned that the information is transferred. It doesn't matter what happens; it's just always transferred. And it makes me wonder, like, well, what happened to great-grandfather Witwicky and his information? Or, like, did it get drained back into the cube? Or is it gone forever? Did it go into the bars of his mental asylum when he passed away? Like,
who knows?
Yeah. And the technical answer, I believe, is he technically scrubbed it into the walls of his cell, so it was transcribed into the walls, so it would continue that way. But that still, like, they'll have us think about questions that really don't work out because of just how the information passes through this movie and through with the All-Star pieces. And there are moments, like, I even wrote it in here that was like Deus Ex Transformicus moments is what I wrote down, or Deus Ex Optimus Prime.
Yeah, because that happens a lot.
But I did like the Bad Boys Easter egg. That was cute.
Oh, the little poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. Made me think of a movie that was actually a second movie that was also trash, but still somewhat, in my opinion, more enjoyable in some ways. And the other thing too is this movie has some cool action moments, but they primarily only involve either Bumblebee or Optimus, and one scene with Sideswipe.
I mean, maybe I honestly can't really tell you much because I was kind of passing out in the middle of this movie. Like,
I don't blame you.
It was really, this one was kind of the most boring out of all three of the movies we watched today. I, for the life of me, couldn't stay focused on this film. And it could be just because it wasn't entertaining, or it could just be because it was so much of the exact same type of on screen violence that it was just numbing to watch over time. But
No, that is another issue I have with this franchise is that the action feels the same every time.
mhm.
Like compared to another movie franchise that does a lot of action, compared to John Wick. John Wick escalates and evolves its style each movie
fight
they
scene
do.
is different too.
Yeah. While in this franchise, it's always metal thing clashing against metal thing with explosion. The third one, I think, does a little bit better of cleaning up the action by making people more distinct from each other during the fights. And that helps a fucking ton. But the fact that it took 3 movies to get there says something. And it shouldn't have. And the other thing, too, is in this movie, one of my other problems, too, is the Autobots don't have a lot of personality.
No. It's because, once again, it's because the main characters are humans and the Autobots are our side characters, so they don't spend the time to establish what's important to them and how they develop as the episodes go on.
Yeah,
or movies.
which doesn't work it doesn't work in this, in my opinion. Actually, you want to be able to relate to the Transformers more, right?
I guess, yeah. This, I would ultimately say, the best so far. Just so far, out of the 3 movies, not including the next movie because we haven't technically reviewed it yet, but out of the 3 movies we've reviewed that are Transformers related, Bumblebee by far was the best, only because it sticks with one Transformer and one human and their interactions as they go through their story. So,
yes.
And in this, we have 2 humans, technically 8. But we have 2 that matter.
If we count our main 2 heroes, yes. But then the main 2 heroes are joined by 2 other humans, and then we've got the military humans, we've got the parent humans, we've got the government humans. It's just there's so many fucking layers to this movie that just don't need to be there.
Do you have a least favorite human in this movie? Because I definitely do.
Probably the roommate guy.
For me, it's Mom. Literally, Mom. Like, I feel bad because Mom's whole thing is jokes. She is the comedic role. Dad doesn't do anything anymore because he is supposed to babysit Mom while she's being funny. Like,
yes.
And then technically we have the roommate dude whose name I can't remember, but
it is Leo Spitz.
Leo Spitz. Like, but there are moments that I like Leo, like his mental breakdown in the car when he's with the others, before. Yeah.
My problem with this character is probably more because of the twins. Because the entire time this movie's going on, the twins are just seriously calling him a pussy the entire fucking time.
That's not wrong.
And man, does that get old.
Just
fast.
The twins get old.
Oh, without a doubt. But and then Simmons does the same shit. John Turturro's character.
Mm-hmm. Which I like John Turturro.
Oh, I love John Turturro.
He is my favorite character, I think, in this movie when it comes to comedic moments, except when he gets sleazy.
Oh, God, because it's so wrong. And then, fun fact, did you know Tyrese Gibson, who plays Epps in these 3 movies, he actually paid to get in the first movie?
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
He paid to be in the first Transformers movie.
All right. He was like, I want to do it, man.
I will pay to be here.
Just means he can get into the other 4 movies and get paid for them.
Well,
Shush.
2.
Shush.
Also, this is the last one that Megan Fox is in before Steven Spielberg kicks her out of the franchise because she complained about how Michael Bay's a fucking sleaze. So there's also that problem with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's just issues all around. And also, man, some of the CGI.
There are moments that definitely, like, there are good moments. There are definitely some strong bad moments. Uh, the one thing that I thought was kind of disappointing is I thought it was kind of easy to tell when they switched to digital doubles because the CGI was shinier. It glowed a little bit more.
Yes.
Um, Especially when, like, Optimus moments, when it's like, all right, Optimus, drive out of this airplane. And for about 2 seconds, it's a practical semi. And then it's 20 seconds of a CG semi. And then it's 1 second of a practical semi. And it's like, oh, well, what was the point of actually having a practical semi on set?
Well, and the other thing too is like
but still.
my thought process too is like in the last one as well into this one. You know who they spent the time designing and making sure look good in everything? Optimus, especially in the last one, continuously looks the best. When you look at him next to other Transformers, though, he sticks out because he looks better than the other ones. I noticed that this time around because obviously I've become the CGI guy through through this series, where my main critique is about consistency with CGI, and it wasn't consistent, and it's worse in this one. Because, yes, Optimus looks better than a lot of the rest, but he doesn't look good throughout this movie. So it just doesn't work.
Does it matter what happens with Optimus? Like, with his...
What happens with Optimus is annoying as shit and should have been saved for later.
I agree, yes. But, like, does it matter he doesn't look good because of what happens to him? Like, it kind of makes sense that he doesn't look good in this movie if you think about it.
Well, I'm saying, like, in other scenes when he's with other Autobots and stuff like that, he doesn't look, like, lighting-wise, it doesn't always match what should be. Like, when they're in the beginning scene when they walk in to see that, the Harlan will rise guy, that they knock his wheels out and he falls over and everything, and then they execute him. It's the beginning of the movie. And it just shows again that Optimus just doesn't give a fuck. Straight up murks the dude.
Yeah, he just
anyways,
them.
When they're walking, the lighting doesn't match what actually the lighting is. For at least them. Because it feels like there's a primary light source that's coming from like head on instead of kind of over the shoulder. While objects around them have a light over the shoulder, it looks like. And it doesn't quite match 100%. And you notice it. You notice it more as time goes on when you watch more movies.
I was about to say, I didn't look at that kind of thing in this movie. I wasn't looking for shadows or lighting, honestly. I was looking to stay awake.
Well, that's fair. This movie's boring as shit because it takes forever, again, for like something to actually happen.
Yeah, this is the longest movie that we've seen Transformers-wise so far. It takes forever. And it does. With credits, I think it's 2 hours and 40 some odd minutes. But on IMDb, it says it's 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. Sadly, these movies get longer as they go on. And I don't know how.
Oh, I don't know either. Like, it's funny because as I'm taking notes on all of my pages of notes, I take progressively less and less notes. And I could tell, like, on this one, for instance, I have nothing note-wise from what happens to Optimus when it first happens until mom has to tell dad to let Sam go. I'm pretty sure that's an hour and 15 minutes worth of movie. I'm not sure.
That is roughly an hour.
And I had nothing to say.
Because nothing is happening. Because it's a fucking Uncharted movie in the center of this. Oh. He asked for a refund.
A refund for being in the movie.
Tyrese.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed up for 2 more, so I doubt it.
No, he got it back over time.
I mean, probably.
It was like a safety deposit, you know? It's like...
it's just, this movie does not do a lot of... It has some cool moments, but it just doesn't do enough.
It does and it doesn't. Because I can't... The only moment that I can think of in this movie involves the 5-vehicle transformer in the railgun.
That thing still pisses me off.
Yeah.
I'm under the enemy's scrotum.
Yeah, that's the only part of this movie that I can think of. Well, and that's not even a good part of this movie. While in the other movies, I could think of actually like interesting action scenes.
My interesting action scene is 3v1 Optimus. I like that fight scene because it's cool to see Optimus tear through shit.
Was it 3v1? I thought it was like 50. I couldn't tell. They all look the same.
They do. All the Decepticons are gray. Who decided to do that? I'm just so mad about that.
Well, let's see.
Make them different.
We could go through the cast and crew list and IMDb.
If you want to do that, go for it. I'm also going to hand you your popcorn.
All right. For this movie, I'm going to give it a nice... It's just a 5. It's just...
I'm giving it a 4.5, putting it at a nice little 5.
It could be a lot better. It's definitely pretty bad.
Yes.
And the one thing that I think that bugs me is Michael Bay does very simple cinematography until it comes to action. Like, he's really good at being able to throw like actual practical effects onto the screen, where cars can practically flip through the air and things can actually be on fire and explode, and nothing's overexposed, which looks great, or underexposed, which is nice. But then he does things where it's like, oh, this is going to be a dramatic scene, so I'm going to tilt the camera. Can you tell it's dramatic now? Or, oh, this is going to be a scene where something suspenseful is about to happen. Let me lower the camera. Can you tell it's suspenseful now? Oh, and shit tons of slow-mo. Just literal shit tons of slow-mo.
Oh, dude, it was so much. All right.
Are you ready for this punch? Slow motion. Punch. Okay. Fine. All right. Button. We're moving on to the third and final movie. Transformers 3.
Dark of the Moon.
Not even Dark Side of the Moon. Dark of the Moon.
No, he's part of DC.
Ha. If I could physically put up a har emote, I would.
Here, I'll do it in chat for you real quick. There you go.
Thank you.
So, this movie starts out with during the war, a ship got lost and ended up on the moon. That's the beginning. That's your intro thing, broken down real quick. Has Sentinel Prime on it, who, by the way, played by Leonard Nimoy. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm going to take you back to 2011, June 29th. Each of these movies were about 2 years apart, with a budget of $195 million, less than the last one, actually. Opening U.S. made $97 million, less than the last one did. $352 million for U.S., less than the last one, but it made $1.1 billion worldwide.
$1 billion. With a B, not an M, a B.
B. Because these movies were just doing great overseas. This movie does the best. Do you want to hear me why?
Sure. You think this is the best Transformers movie? Sorry?
Not better than Bumblebee. Like, excluding Bumblebee. Mm-hmm. If we're just talking so far.
I'm just making sure I heard you right. Not saying, like, this does the best internationally because, but you think
No, I'm saying this is the best of them.
Okay.
That, especially of what we've watched. Because, A, the Transformers are doing shit. Throughout this entire movie, the Transformers are relevant. There is one major break from Transformers doing shit. And that's because, technically, the Transformers are doing shit off-screen.
So I'd say, like, this moment, like, this movie, I thought was really interesting and not all at the same time. Because
I agree 100%.
Like, it did stuff where the Transformers were actually being Transformers, which left us to see more of Shia LaBeouf in his Shia LaBeouf life. But that stuff I didn't care for. Um, Once we got to see the Transformers doing Transformers things, that was kind of cool. And then we get towards the end of the movie where I was actually fascinated for a moment because I thought they were going to do like I don't know, like an alien movie or almost like I almost thought Cloverfield. Like the original
Yeah.
Cloverfield where it would be the humans trying to survive what's going on around them. And while that's partially true, I wish they went more into that. Like, I would
I
have.
wish they would have gotten a little bit further in before Optimus just goes, "Sup, bitches."
Well,
Sup,
he,
bitches.
he does that, and he does it simultaneously, which pisses me off. Like, when he's in the fight, he kicks ass. But what takes him out of the fights sometimes is really ridiculous and dumb.
Cables?
Yeah. So, spoilers, Dev.
I don't, we're gonna spoil this movie.
We'll
Sorry.
get there. We're not there yet. You're jumping ahead in time.
Fine, sorry. Buzz Aldrin's in this movie.
He is. Which, God, could you imagine being asked? Like, imagine being Buzz Aldrin and being asked, "You want to be in a Transformers film? Because we're talking about the moon."
Also, this cast is so crazy because you've also got like Alan Tudyk in this, who I love. Ken Jeong is in this, and he's genuinely funny. He's genuinely funny all the time. John Malkovich is in this. Frances McDormand, like Patrick Dempsey is in this movie. Like, what the fuck is this cast? Like,
It's a budget cast. It's up there, and it's mixed too, because like, yeah, Patrick Dempsey is a Grey's Anatomy star mainly. We have Shia, who was a Disney kid. These are. It's quite an eclectic group of individuals.
and you've also got freaking Spock playing Sentinel Prime, which, man, I have some issues with.
I do like. I have issues with this whole movie, and I don't at the same time, because this whole movie only exists because they're like, hey, the last two movies made money, so let's make a third movie, and they tied these two together, this movie together, only because they needed to find a way to tie them together. Like,
again, they retcon stuff again. I know it's like slightly minor again, but it's still continuing this retcon issue of, oh, well, I know we said we revealed everything, but we didn't reveal everything.
But in this movie, I don't really think it's a different approach in how they do it this way. Because in the last movie, they just straight up said, yes, we're changing what's happening because this is the opening exposition of the movie. And this movie, it's different because the Autobots don't know about this. And the Autobots are finding out about it at the same time we are. So yes, they're still technically changing the history or the timeline of what we think the Autobots are supposed to be there. But I thought it fit perfectly fine. Like, I thought it was a perfectly excusable way that they put it in there. Other than the fact that it was expounded upon, exposed.
Well, I mean,
expunged.
the thing with it, too, is, for me, that it just, it's, I didn't need, like, I get tired of it constantly being, because, honestly, the plots of each of these movies, going on, is that something happened in human history that Transformers were actually involved in, and that's the catalyst for this film.
So I'm interested in the Age of Extinction with dinosaurs. Get to learn about Dinobots. Ooh.
Yep. That's gonna be fun. I'm totally ready for this. I'm not ready for this. Hell, what did I do?
I was about to say, you're the one who picked these.
I know.
Don't be having a panic attack when you were the ones who was like, I can't wait for fucking Transformers.
I can't. I'm still looking forward to next week. Listen. I'm looking forward because I haven't seen it last night and I've heard nothing good about it. I have heard nothing good about it. So, I kind of can't wait. But like this, and the fact that like the Transformers have a ship now, they have like, why can't we do more interspace stuff? You know, why do we got to go back to Chicago? It's just they constantly do stuff that they avoid doing stuff that could have been more interesting.
That's partially true. I mean, they do some pretty interesting technical things, like using live footage of Kennedy and other presidents and integrating it into
Well,
this film.
when they CGI the Kennedy, it looks awful.
True, you're not wrong.
With the Truman, it's not too bad. There's no Truman that follows Kennedy, right? If I remember
I'm
correctly.
terrible with history, so I don't know.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. But they do interesting things like that, where they'll integrate some like old footage and they'll do current footage and they'll mix it up with CGI. So at least they do something interesting.
Oh, it
like
was
that.
Johnson, idiot. Lyndon B. Johnson.
I
Sorry.
also like that they added things like they also added the weapons trailer, which was something that I was literally after watching the second movie, I was like, I wonder if they're ever going to add in the weapons trailer like they did in the cartoon, because I was thinking about the Robot Chicken or Family Guy or whatever episode where they make fun of it, where Optimus Prime fights off a bunch of flying gargoyles by transforming back and forth between semi-truck and normal, like, human mode, because every time he transforms into a truck, the trailer will just magically appear, and the magically appearing truck is what causes the gargoyles to smash into it, because they're like, oh, he's not here. Ah! And I was like, that I was thinking about the weapons truck, and then literally opening scene, there's the weapons truck, and I was like, oh, hey, that's cool.
Too bad it's the only time we're ever going to see it.
We technically get to see it 3 times. Once in the last movie and twice in this movie.
Sorry. No, we don't see... Well, no, that doesn't count in the last movie because it's not the trailer. It's a slight upgrade for a moment.
And it becomes the trailer, and then it's an upgrade again in this movie.
That they always find a way to hinder Optimus in these movies, by the way, and I hate it. And this one especially, like, this movie continuously is Optimus is being a badass, Optimus is a klutz.
Like, I did think it was kind of silly, though. Like, I like the weapons trailer, but at the same time, apparently Optimus doesn't have the swords in his arms anymore. So there's that.
Yeah, he's got other sword things that he uses now.
Yeah. And he has an axe now, which is kind of cool. But
The axe is awesome.
we've never seen
use
it
it
before.
more.
Yeah.
Well, that would make sense to leave that in the trailer and have the swords on your arms.
But how does he bend his arms if there's swords in... I mean, it's robotics, whatever.
Shut
This
up.
movie had other things I didn't like, too. Like, this was the only movie that I had to watch with subtitles because I couldn't understand what people were saying. And the hatchet suit for the talking to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that. Or...
And this is during the era when everyone was doing the glider suits.
Yeah, which I was like, why the hell is the military using a fucking glider suit?
Because it's cool.
Yeah. Because it's adrenaline for the military. Hell yeah, bruh. But this whole movie as well, like, I thought it was fascinating because they had this super cool city fight scene where the whole focus was the humans. And I was like, this is sweet. I like what we're seeing here. I like how they're doing this. But it never goes anywhere. Like, they don't amp up the stakes, really. They don't do anything super amazing when it comes to the action. So after a while, like, my stepmother joined in after waking up from a nap. And she was like, oh, cool, I'll watch the rest of this movie with you. And she fell back asleep because she was lulled to sleep from the non-stop exact same mood of the action.
There's only one scene that's slightly different from the rest of the action, and that's the Optimus flyby.
Is that when he gets stuck in the cables?
No, before that, or before or after that, when he does like it's the side street shot where it slides down, and you can kind of make out what's happening, but it's just boom, boom, boom. But it's a sweeping shot, and it's kind of cool.
Mhm.
Um, that's the only one that really makes a difference in most of the scenes. And then we also get another stupid one one shall rise, one shall fall moment, which happens in every single one of these fucking movies. He says something similar to it in all three of them. The first one was literally, one shall rise, one shall fall. The next one was, I rise, you fall. And then this one's saying about like, Megatron's like, what would you be without me?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
And then they both die. Oh, I'm just kidding. So,
Also, they kill off so many fucking Decepticons. Not spoiling who. They kill off so many things, and I'm like, why? They kill off a lot of Autobots, too, and I'm like, why?
that's probably why they haven't named a lot of these characters before, or hadn't given them backstories. Is because they just need to kill people. They needed to have this long, extended battlefield, and they needed casualties. So if they made characters that we'd like, they would ruin the mood of certain points in the movie that they wanted to have. But they couldn't explain these beloved characters because they didn't have the time to explain them. So it's a tactic.
They didn't have the time in 2.5 hours.
No.
I want us to remember this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not criticizing Steven for saying this. That is the truth of these movies. They didn't have time in 2.5 fucking hours to explain beloved characters on both sides. Because some of the villains are loved by the fan base. Like Starscream is loved by the fan base.
Let's say Starscream's one of my favorite Decepticons, especially in the cartoons, because he's not a wimpy bitch like he is in these movies.
I mean, occasionally he is when Megatron's around, but he's always conniving. He's the snake. He's always ready to usurp Megatron as soon as the coin drops. And he's ready to do it.
He's there. He's all for it. But that's not what he is really in this movie, sadly.
No, he gets taken out like a bitch.
And then, plus, additionally, just twists that happen in this film, which they're not even good. So, I don't know.
They're not set up.
Yeah. So, this movie was, by far, to me, like, even though it does better, Transformer moments, it's the worst film out of the three that we watched so far.
Really?
To me.
I think it's better than, I think it's better than 2. But I think 1, I hold a little higher due to the fact that it's the first one, so it gets cut a little bit more slack.
I mean, that's literally why Iron Man was in our original, top 3 in our first MCU list, so.
Well, I was in top 10.
You get the point.
I get the point.
I hate that we do that sometimes. Like, genuinely, it bugs me sometimes when it's like, well, technically...
We both do it a lot.
I know, and I fucking hate it. From both of us. I genuinely hate it. So,
I'm sorry.
But continuing, still, it happens in my real life, too. It's not just you. It's main family who's the problem. So, yeah, it's just dumb stuff happens, and none of it's clever, none of it's interesting. All of it to me blends in together. Once again, this is a movie I had a hard time trying to stay awake in, even though it was constant explosions. Like, I don't remember a time when I could hear explosions and be lulled to sleep. But it was this movie, as well as the last one. I also didn't like the connection with our human history and tragedy with this movie. I don't want to spoil it because it doesn't really matter, but at the same time, we've spoiled enough.
A bit.
So
I get frustrated. I talk a lot.
it's okay. I just don't know, and they're distracted. Like, I guess I wrote on here my least favorite moment was probably the find the job montage, because once again,
Oh,
it's
just start him with a job.
yeah, we didn't need that. We didn't, especially because what he gets and the information and what becomes of it in this movie because of this job search is trivial, if anything at all. Honestly, for the plot of the movie.
You want to know a way to streamline his job stuff? Get rid of his girlfriend entirely.
We don't need her. Yeah, this movie doesn't
At
need
all.
a relationship.
No. Take that out. We don't need a love interest in this one. Fine. Make him work for Patrick Dempsey.
Wow.
Wow, did I just streamline all that shit?
But then the movie would only be 60 minutes.
No. I would at least cut a good half hour. Because you take out everything with the girlfriend and you streamline the job stuff. Bam. Yeah, but then, Dev, we don't get the cool Soundwave transform thing. Which, by the way, how did Soundwave go from a cool satellite to a Mercury?
I kept getting confused because they mentioned Soundwave and Shockwave in this movie.
Yes. Well, they're both in it. The problem is, too, when you look up the character, when you're watching this on there, and you look at the character on here, the sometimes they pop up Shockwave when you look up Soundwave.
Yeah.
Shockwave was the one with the horns.
Yeah, and so which one was the centaur? The one with the one eye?
Yeah, the one who was riding the worm and
Yeah.
sometimes walked on two legs. Yeah, that's Shockwave.
Yeah, which I liked his design when he was like a half worm, when he was plugged into the drill, but then he could control the drill, or the drill was technically alive. I don't know. Things bullshit.
I think the drill was alive on its own.
But they lived together in harmony.
Yeah. They're a real odd couple.
This movie is not good to me.
No, it's better than 2. I'm going to say that. Like, arguably, I think it's better than 2. Because it's more... I think the plot is more interesting. I'm not saying it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta make that clear right now. But it's more interesting. Downside. Not as kick-ass as a soundtrack as the last 2.
Like, I actually think my favorite soundtrack, though, is the second movie.
Yes. Because they integrate New Divide into so much of the actual soundtrack.
And I also like some of their other songs, too. Like, I love me some good Nickelback.
Also, 21 Guns is in it.
Yeah.
21 Guns!
But no, I do like the second movie soundtrack the most, I think. It was my favorite.
I agree. Both from, like, both just regular music and from a, like, what's the other music?
Pop selection?
No, regular, like, actual soundtrack.
Orchestration?
Yes. Orchestral soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because, again, like, a lot of it, they actually do integrate New Divide, which is a great Linkin Park song.
Like, I do like the driving montage when you hear "dum bum bwah bwah." Like, those scenes are kind of cool.
But it's not, like, actually playing the song, it's the music,
Yeah.
and it's just, like, it just integrates into it. I'm like, see, that's cool, because that makes it, when New Divide actually starts playing, you're just like, oh, man, this has been building up for this the entire fucking time. All right. Across this new divide. I remember, by the way, that was during the MySpace era, and that was the #1 song on my MySpace music during this time.
This is my MySpace profile page song. Walk in.
Yeah, it was.
Dude,
Dude, it was a lot of Linkin Park.
I
Both
don't
this
blame
one and the last one. Songs. Eminem and a few other things. It was just. This was the number one because it was the newest, and then MySpace died.
you.
Um, and then this one had a very not that the song I know what song it is. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a Linkin Park song that's not as jammin'. It's during their phase when they started to switch from being more alt punk to being more I don't want to say synth, but a little bit more tech-y, I want to say. During the late era of Linkin Park. It was during that transition.
I'm bad with song names, song titles.
I can't remember the name of it either offhand, but it's not a bad song. It's just it's not as kickin' as New Divide, which brings the soundtrack down just some. It's not bad. The soundtrack's not bad, but it's not Two's, which sucks because Two is the worst one that we've seen so far, in my opinion. But I do have to say its soundtrack is great. But yeah, I mean, and then just. And there's just so many little things like that could have been more interesting.
I wish Sentinel Prime was more interesting, honestly.
God, right? You got Leonard Nimoy, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really interested to do these, by the way. Fun story. Because he actually played Big Planet one from the first the old movie Galvatron. No, Galvatron's the next form of Megatron. It's
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the giant planet one.
Yes, he played Unicron in the OG Transformers movie. So when Michael Bay wanted him to be a part of it, because him and Michael Bay are related through family, but he didn't know how to ask him. So during one of the reasons why Leonard Nimoy is known as Spock Prime in the Calvinverse of Star Trek is because it's an homage to Transformers, and they wanted to pay like a little bit of that respect to the Transformers franchise that Leonard liked a lot, because Leonard Nimoy wanted to come to be in the Transformers movies, and play a Prime. So,
I liked Leonard Nimoy, but oddly enough, I could not connect his voice with Sentinel Prime. Like, no. I could see Peter Cullen's and Optimus Prime. I could hear them. I could hear every other...
I am Optimus Prime.
Exactly. Like, if the character talked and I could see them talking, I could connect the voice with them. But every time I saw Sentinel talk and I heard Leonard Nimoy, they did not connect to me.
Yeah, like, the problem is they didn't edit his voice at all, while they do with others. Mm-hmm. Like, they add a little bit of, like, mechanicalness to the voices a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit of synth to it. Like, just, they add a little bit of tech to it to overlay it. Even with Hugo Weaving, who, if you listen closely, you know it's Hugo Weaving. But he changes his voice enough to really make the character different. Because, I mean, the dude's a great actor, so he knows how to change his voice well. Like, Mr. Anderson. But he also does Elron, which is much more like, I am Elron. Like, it's just, like, it's more full, while Mr. Smith
you
is
doing
much
impressions more... is not helping this cause. Like, no, I know what you're trying
I'm not
to
great
say.
at copying Hugo Weaving. I'm sorry. But he also changes his voice to be Megatron, being like, I'm Megatron. Like, he had some snarl to it. Which makes it like that was more Starscream, I will say. Megatron, what are we going to do? But it's just like I agree, and it kind of sucks. I could see Sentinel Prime being voiced by Leonard Nimoy being good.
Yeah, and
it's just not done well here.
Like, his voice acting was fine; it just wasn't integrated well into the film. That's the point that I was trying to get. So, I mean,
there's some awful CGI in this. There's a CGI Shia moment that my brain went, okay, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah.
when I can watch the Raimi films and be like, that looks more realistic than this. You got a problem. Because that came out latest one came out, 4 years before this? Fuck you.
Okay, I've got really nothing else to say, honestly,
All right,
specific.
let's
Kernels?
let's popcorn it. Yeah, kernels. I'm gonna give it 7.
I'm going to give it, I guess I'll give it a 5.
Fair enough.
That way it's not technically lower than my last score for you.
You could put it lower. I'm not gonna judge you on it. Personal opinion, I think this one's better than the last one. I think my thing is this one's not offensive either.
That's true.
Some of it's genuinely less offensive unless you talk about women, in which case it's about on par with the rest of the franchise.
I was about to say that some of the end jokes done by Totoro,
Simmons.
yeah, like his little end credit gag. God, that is the worst part of this movie to me.
Lock me up.
It's worth it. It was worth it. I was okay. Lock me up for love. Ugh. It was funny.
Also, Alan Tudyk was great.
That's true. Okay.
All right, I'm hitting the button.
Thank you.
Let's get ready to spoil
They fucking kill Ironhide in such a bitch way. I know I'm just starting out of the gate with this, but
I was about to say, that's not what I even care about. I don't care that Ironhide died.
But I do, because it's such an, damn it. I hate how they do it because it's so, it's worthless. It's a worthless death to a character who's been in the franchise from the beginning.
I mean, you're not wrong. But, at the same, it's just, he was a character that I felt no attachment to in this movie, so he was just another nameless character that died, essentially. He was just, sure, he might have been important to our main characters in some way, but that was barely established, if at all, that he was a super friendly person or needed character of our group.
Well, he wasn't a super friendly. I will say that. He's a bit of an asshole. I mean, but I liked him because I liked it because he did his humor. The humor he brought was because he's the jughead of the group. He's the shoot first, ask questions later of the group, and I always enjoyed that about him. And then Sentinel just fucking murks him, and it upsets me.
Why?
He fucking gets disintegrated. God damn it.
That was the most gruesome out of most of the deaths, you think about it. All the others,
without a doubt.
When they died, they were just ripped apart and they died instantly. He had to watch himself disintegrate.
That was rough. It still hurts me a little bit. It's just because Ironhide's cool. And they off him like a bitch, man. I hate it. You could have made that way more impactful. Again, this is why I think that this franchise doesn't work with it being centered around humans. That would have been far more impactful if this story was more centered on the Autobots. Have human characters. I'm not saying don't have human characters. But make because the Transformers have personality, they have character, they can be relatable. They're a successful franchise outside of the movies. Obviously, they're relatable.
So yeah, all you could have easily have done this whole thing. This movie could have basically been the exact same thing. The only difference being the humans still don't know about the Transformers. Not even the military. Make it so that, maybe the military has hints, but it's never really been fully confirmed until the actual battle starts happening, and it's oh, look at this.
Actually live up to Transformers Robots in Disguise? Or the franchise? That would have been cool.
I mean, none of the humans know they exist. It's all a secret. Only the U.S. government knows, apparently.
But the third one, they know. They know that they exist, but they don't know. There's still those skeptics well, maybe if the Autobots left, we would... Can we get past that, by the way? I hate that this is another thing that the franchise does. Is that, well, maybe the Autobots should leave, and then the Decepticons will leave. But the Decepticons aren't going to leave, because apparently Earth is too involved in everything with the Cybertronians. so the Decepticons keep coming back, no matter what.
It could. At least it's not like there's a show that I watched on Netflix called I believe it was. I think it was 3 Deep or something like that. It was a Guillermo. I believe it was one of the Guillermo del Toro Netflix original animations, but I can't honestly tell you because I've watched a lot of Netflix cartoons. But they make jokes about. I'm losing my train of thought right now. Where am I going? Remind me what you were talking about a second ago, because I literally just forgot what I was saying.
The fact that the it was relatable.
Yep,
where
we
were
lost
we?
it.
We lost it, didn't we? Fuck. The fact that they're always involved in history.
Yeah. Okay. The storyline of that movie was ultimately like, even though that these aliens are from like a completely different star system, they are connected to Earth, and they managed to get to Earth because the two planets have been connected in their history for millennia, and just neither race knew about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. I hate it.
Like, I feel like what we're not learning here, this is me theorizing here, because I don't know. My guess is that planet Earth is actually Unicron, or something of the sort, like one of the giant Transformers in this universe. And so is Cybertron. Cybertron itself is also a giant Transformer. I mean, it's probably not, but that's the only way that could really excuse
I
it.
genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know because I haven't seen the fifth one, so couldn't tell you. We're gonna find out together. I'm actually looking forward to this.
I'll be honest, I hadn't seen this third movie. I really hadn't.
Really?
I hadn't, man, and it still didn't interest
But
me.
you
while
saw
watching
Age of
it.
Extinction?
Yeah. Or not all of it, no.
Oh, okay.
I've seen tidbits of every single, like the fourth movie and the fifth movie, but I have not seen them all the way through once.
Okay.
And this movie, when I sat down to watch it, I was like, I don't remember this. So.
Oh.
But even then, not knowing what was going on, it was so bad. Like, the double crossing with the freaking the boss who was hitting on the girlfriend the whole time, and
Okay, you could have made it far more interesting to have humans involved with the Decepticons.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
you could have made the human a transforming Decepticon, but you did it.
No, Steven, that was the last movie. They don't exist anymore.
That's right. Because they couldn't make more tongue jokes.
That was still fucking weird, man.
I have a thing wrapped around my neck, but there's also a tug over here. Yeah, it's like,
It's just so wrong, dude.
And then, like in this movie, like the last movie, how I wrote notes down. My notes went from Sentinel brought home to being told exposition on how to shut down the beacons to Autobots shipped out into space. No, sorry, I got that mixed up. Sorry, it went from bringing back Sentinel Prime to shipping the Autobots away, which is about 45 minutes later, and then it jumped to learning how to shut down the beacons, which I think was about 30 minutes after that. And then the next note I wrote down was shockwave attacks.
Which was shortly after that, but...
So, and then that was the last note I wrote, because nothing else really interested me. I was disappointed with Optimus, because every single time he gets in a fight, he is really good. He murders a bunch of people until he doesn't, because the story needs to happen.
That is exactly how it happens this entire movie.
It's like, I'm Optimus.
And he always gets like, okay, so it starts out with the fight when they enter the city and he gets the trailer, which, by the way, I really hate the sound effects they did for Optimus whenever he gets like beaten to the side. It's so like in your face, like what the fuck was that? But then the trailer gets taken away. He's like, I have to get back to the trailer.
That he's gone for a while.
He gets to the trailer, shows up, it does something, gets stuck, and it's taken out for the next 15 fucking minutes.
That getting stuck got me so pissed off. I was like, you're literally ripping people apart with your bare hands, and you can't get out of a couple of cables. You have
They're
to be
high tension cables, Steven.
used to do construction, and they're loosely hanging off the edge of a building, and he just happened to fall into them perfectly.
You can't break high tension cables that are hanging loosely on a building once they're tangled around something.
Obviously
Don't
not.
you know?
Not unless you get the wrecking crew in there to snip them, but that will take like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So yeah,
At
bad
least
guy.
the wrecking crew is more entertaining than the twins.
That's true. The wrecking crew was,
One of them's Joe DiMaggio, by the way.
and they're just brash and funny. Like, and speaking of which, I like how they introduced the twins in the second movie. I'm kind of this spoiler section. We can basically just spoil all the movies.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I planned on it anyways.
Figured, but for anyone else. You were already spoiling all. You're spoiling the next two movies too. I'm just kidding.
What if we're spoiling and we don't know it yet?
We are. We probably are. We're predicting the future. But no, all of these movies have silly, stupid things that just I don't like. Of course, like there's Mr. Dillon, as I called him, being our bad guy. There was, literally how basically all of the people that we're talking to in this movie specifically are almost always bad. Like if we're talking to them, they're probably a bad guy. If they're not one of the characters we've already met, that is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they introduced some other characters in this that like they get like I don't know what happens to Jolt, who was in the last one, the electric dude. Gone.
The motorcycles
so are some of them. I think 2 of them are still there, but we see them for a second and then they're gone. We get introduced to a few new Autobots, who I think could have been entertaining. There's
I don't need to know their names, Dev. They don't matter in this movie.
The red Ferrari, Dino.
I don't need to know their names though, Dev. They don't matter in this movie. Like going through and telling me who each and every one of them is not going to help me with this movie because I don't care. Like because knowing their names doesn't matter with this movie.
Can I still say them because they matter to me?
Sure.
Like, I'm not saying them for them to matter to you. I'm saying them because they matter to me.
Sure.
Sorry.
I'm not trying to shut you
like
down. In this instance, I was not trying to shut you down. In this instance, I was just saying this kind of pointless information.
Depends on who you're asking. As someone who likes the Transformers and, you know, saying their names might identify them with who they are in the shows, for someone who maybe hasn't seen these.
But knowing their names doesn't matter. Like, these characters...
does for the point I'm going to make.
Go for it.
Let me get there. The problem is that characters like Dino, Sideswipe, Ratchet even, who is a staple of this franchise, are sidelined, and they're named, but we don't know who they are. We don't know them. While if you were if you watched the show or something like that, you knew these characters' personalities. You knew Ratchet was this old war vet who was a healer who tried to pick up pacifism depending on which version you watch. Who didn't want to fight because he wanted to save lives and he used his gifts to help the Autobots. And he's kind of an older mentor figure to some of the Autobots. Because he's not a young gun like a lot of the other ones are. That Ironhide is the brash. He's the, push through and guns blazing one that he's, ready to just rip into the Decepticons. But he learns a lot. He's also not a bad person. He just, the Decepticons are evil, so he knows that he needs to fight them. But he also learns a lot throughout the shows and stuff like that. They don't have those personalities, Like, they have, like, hints of what they could be like. Like, Dino is, like, Sideswipe's buddy. But that's all we really get. We don't know Sideswipe super well, other than we think he's the one from the last one if you don't know their name. Because he's a Corvette, like he was in the last one. But this time he's a convertible Corvette. Which is really, can I just say, weird choice for an Autobot who's trying to be disguised. To be a convertible without someone driving the car all the time.
I mean, like, I hear your point. Like, you're bummed out because they didn't faithfully follow the source material.
Well, not even. They didn't. It doesn't feel like they attempted to.
I hear, and this is the same problem we had with Superman, because in this instance, I don't give a damn that these aren't the characters. Like, not to like say that your opinion here doesn't matter, but in the scheme of this movie, these characters don't matter. So not knowing why they matter to the other characters doesn't matter. So not even having them in this movie doesn't matter. We could have removed them altogether.
Then I will bring up my point during Man of Steel. Then why make the movie?
Because you can make an interesting movie using old ideas and old IPs. Like,
well, you're not using the old ideas. You're just using the IP.
Still work. Like, I can guarantee you they could make a super interesting Transformers movie without using Bumblebee or Optimus Prime or Megatron. Because it's
probably
because it's still,
but they won't do it.
Yeah, because it's still the Transformers and it's still the idea of a car in disguise that can transform, and it'll probably have the action stuff. So like,
well, okay, and that's okay, yes, but the problem is there's the heart of what makes this franchise what it is not here. You can make it interesting potentially. But why use the characters that people know then if you're not going to be like, again, this is my problem with Superman, is that like you're not showing what this character is, what this character means. These characters mean something to people, okay? So you have to have some faithfulness to who they are.
But do you really? Like if
then why use them? What is the point of using them?
At every point in time, the creators have every bit of control. So, like, we retconned...
No, death of the author.
It depends. That depends on your point of view.
I mean, fair. I'm more of a death of the author person. Because after a certain point, the idea of a character or something like that surpasses what the author maybe created them in the first place to be. Once the audience latches on and has, like, cumulatively, what these characters stand for, okay? To people. Like, unanimously, what, like, Optimus stands for people who grew up watching the shows.
So what does... I guess, let me ask you then. What does Optimus stand for you then? Like, childhood you when you were watching Transformers. What did Optimus...
He was the leader of the Autobots who was, who wasn't a merciless killer. He knew the value of mercy. He knew how to teach his allies lessons, because he knew that... Because, again, it's a kid's show, so they got to teach lessons. But he knew how to teach his comrades humility, valor, justice, stuff like that was important to them as the Autobots. He knew how to teach them. We never see Optimus teach any Autobot anything. He's an ex machina in these movies.
At the most, he teaches Shia LaBeouf and his character, because these are character developments for him. And they're not character developments for the Transformers.
Okay. But he rarely does that. Most of the time when he's talking to Shia, it's, well, I'm afraid you're involved in this.
You're not wrong there. Like, you're not...
What is that teaching?
It's by the end of the movies, he learns lessons by the end of it, be it being an important leader.
But it's not Optimus' fault or reason. Optimus isn't the reason. Because Optimus died? Is that teaching him a lesson?
Yes, because Optimus sacrificed himself to save Sam because Sam was the key to saving the people. Because, like, Optimus may not have known that, but he selfishly was like, I will not willingly let a single human die if it means saving my people. So he was like, I will not willingly let another person die if I can save everybody else. And that was the lesson he learned throughout the movie. It was a quick example in the second movie with an instant death, but it happened where he was willing to get himself killed, which kind of happens because that's when he gets the Matrix in the
Can we
second
talk
movie.
about that real quick? Robot Heaven?
With all the Bionicle Men?
What the fuck? Why is it a thing that Sam goes to?
I don't. It's because he had the dust of the
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Yeah,
The Matrix.
the Matrix of leadership.
The Allspark, which holds all of the knowledge of their race, and then the Matrix of leadership, which has Energon. Quite the MacGuffins, if you compare the movie.
Well, also, by the way, space bridges were established in the second movie.
Because the Fallen could jump.
No, because Jetfire could jump. Who is it? He's a nobody to the Decepticons.
Mm-hmm. Who was a Decepticon and then went to the Autobots.
But he can do the space bridge shits, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then why the fuck? I mean, I know why we're doing the giant space bridge, because we're trying to teleport an entire planet, but at the same time, I'm like, just for fuck's sake.
So that's like this was new technology. Maybe he adapted the mobile space bridge emitters into giant spires that have zero gravity effects and can teleport entire planets. Which, isn't it interesting how the first time the spires stopped working, they just stopped transmitting Cybertron? But
Well, it's because it wasn't destroyed yet.
Yeah, but the second time it stops working, it sucks them all, Cybertron, all back in.
And that planet is fucked.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? It's just because they wanted to look more dramatic the second time around.
Well, and then like back to the point I was making, like I think we're gonna always disagree on Man of Steel.
Of course. I think we're going to continuously disagree on things that you have a childhood history on. Because it's always like, I remember when this used to mean to me when I was a child. And I was like, I don't care.
It's not even just to me as a child. I'm not talking about just for me what Superman means. I'm talking unanimously for, like, Superman fans what Superman means. Okay? That's the problem with Man of Steel. So I'm going to compare it to, I know it's going to be a weird one, but Sam Raimi Spider-Man, okay? Which came out around the same time. That still had the heart of Spider-Man in it, okay? It was a completely different take. And I don't think it's the best take, but it still had a lot of the heart of Spider-Man in it, with great power, great responsibility, with, you know, Peter Parker having to come to terms with his powers and stuff like that, and the Peter luck and stuff, the Parker luck, stuff like that. Like, little things like that still had the heart. It was a completely new take on it. Completely different. They changed a lot of things for it. Like the fact he didn't make the web shooters, stuff like that. The villains, how they are, how they were created, stuff like that. They changed the source material, but they still had the heart of the source material, if that makes sense. Like, you can't... There's not a point in adapting something and having the same name of it if you're going to take the heart out. If that makes sense. Like, why use that thing if it doesn't matter enough to...
Do you know you want to hear the obvious corporate answer?
Money?
Yes.
I know.
That's always the answer. It's money. They will only
especially
make a
with
movie
this
to make
franchise,
money.
yes. This franchise is 100% because of money. But I mean, but then you compare it to like the MCU that has the heart of the Marvel Comics in it. Like, all of those characters, like, have a lot of the same things that, like, that are built up from the comics, built up in those movies. I mean, they're different. Like, Tony's arc is different from what he's dealt with in the comics. Like, we never get Tony dealing with alcoholism and stuff like that, but we deal with him dealing with PTSD and stuff like that instead. But we deal with the fact that Tony's arc is about the suit. It doesn't make him Iron Man. He makes himself Iron Man. That was a core thing for Iron Man for a lot of his stuff, was coming to terms with that. And then also just dealing with his ego, making sure his ego was in check, because he does have an issue where his hero complex, like, he thinks that if he does this thing, he'll save everyone. But in turn, sometimes it doesn't work that way, and he fucks everything up. His hero complex occasionally needs to be put into check. Just things like that are still true to the characters in the like, their source material, but they're adapted differently to this world. You can still do that, in my opinion, with like the Transformers, with Man of Steel, stuff like that, and still have that like soul to what made these things what they are, and still make good movies and good things with them, and do new things with them. I'm not saying don't do new things with them. Honestly, contrary to the belief, I like doing new things with the characters that are established. One of my problems with Batman is that we constantly go through the same fucking thing with Batman every time. Parents dead, I'm grumpy. We've done that 1,000 times. It's one of the things I really like about this current version of Spider-Man. We didn't have to go through the Uncle Ben stuff, because we know the Uncle Ben stuff. You know? So we didn't have to, like, go through that same thing again for the third time in a decade and a half. And I think that's where my problem is, that, like, you can still be faithful to the source material while still doing something new with it. That's my problem with Transformers.
Okay. All right. I've got nothing else to say, honestly. So.
Fair enough. I got nothing else really to say either, because we've been talking for a while.
All right, let's go on to news, I guess, then, and start wrapping things up for this week. So, yeah, news and wrap up and stuff and fun. But yeah, LaBelle, the Banjo-Kazooie game, you're not wrong. That Banjo-Kazooie game was a great driving game, but not a good Banjo-Kazooie game.
Yes. Took out the heart of Banjo.
So, movie news. I've got nothing really, honestly. Like,
it was a slow fucking week.
Like, movie news is basically the same every week.
Oh, Tenet got pushed back.
I was about to say, that's the only thing that was new, was Tenet was pushed back to August 12th. Instead of July 31st, it's now coming out August 12th. It was pushed back from July 17th to July 31st, and now it's August 12th. So yeah, I don't know if they're still going to try to commit to being in theaters, or if they're going to do straight to digital, because with the July 31st one, they thought they were going to go straight to digital, but I don't know what their plans are anymore.
I mean, at this point, it makes more sense with certain things spiking up again.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. Like, that, my dad told me yesterday that there are websites opening up that are like, find a job in areas near you, and my dad was like, hey, you should look into this stuff about possibly get a job again. And I was like, you realize that I'm going to find a job, and then in 4 weeks, we're going to shut down again because we're going to need to, or else everybody's going to die. I mean, that's not what's going to happen, because our president has stated that he's not going to close the country down again for a second time.
But it's state's choice. Mm-hmm. He said that before, so
yeah, we'll see. Let's see there.
There's a new Superman movie coming. Animated.
That's cool.
Superman Man of Tomorrow, which goes over his origins. It's a fresh take that'll be better than what the
So it's
what
not
we're
gonna, it's going to be an animated Smallville?
kinda. Actually, you're not far off.
Oh. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was about to say, I found another different news story.
Go for it.
So you remember last week how we talked about 30 Rock having episodes taken down because of blackface? Hulu's decided to continue that trend and has removed episodes of Golden Girl, which had a couple of characters in blackface on that show. As well as I think Netflix has done it on Scrubs. There was blackface on the TV show Scrubs, and Netflix.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Don't do blackface. Like,
Yeah, just don't be racist.
it's pretty easy.
Let's see. There's talks of like Quibi trying to do things. Like Quibi apparently is in talks with Blumhouse about making a murder mystery show on their network. There's apparently The Princess Bride on Quibi as well. So
God, don't do it. Please stop. I don't want. Can we, like, talking about Quibi, like, the problem with Quibi, from what I've seen and heard, is that, A, they don't let you, like, take screenshots or pictures or record any of it. So, A, you lose a lot of advertising to what's on there by not allowing that on phones. Because what you're having people use is your phone to watch it. You can't watch it anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
B, the other problem with it is that no one is sitting here going, I want to watch videos like this. And not this.
Yeah.
If I'm watching a video, I'm sitting here like this, right?
Yeah, I don't know who in the right mind would ever be like,
Unless you're on Facebook.
Like, even then, though, I still tilt my phone. Even if it puts the black bars, it's just, I'm watching the video.
Yeah, no, Cleveland. A lot of voice actors have left roles that they were playing of people of color when they weren't people of color. Lots of them. Not exact, like, personal opinion. Good. Still plenty of other things that need to get changed that aren't that. That come from other issues.
Two things I just thought of, though, but keep going.
Nah, I was wrapping up there, like, just saying that,
Mm-hmm.
This isn't exactly what we were aiming for, because, maybe reform and systemic changes need to happen more first.
Yeah, we don't need painted streets. We need changed systems and,
Justice for Breonna Taylor and a bunch of others, stuff like that would be, a good start.
Yeah. So we'll start there and nowhere less. So, other things that I wanted to bring up. Video games. Everybody loves video games. To the point that some are getting adaptations, like Cuphead. Cuphead is getting a Netflix original animation.
Saw that.
So, that I'm kind of interested in. I'm interested to see what they do with it, only because Cuphead is a cute aesthetic with I can't remember the exact style of animation. It has a name, but I can't remember what it's called.
But it's old school animation.
Yeah. So it has a very specific style of animation, and the whole appeal of Cuphead is the fact that it's really freaking hard to play. It's a hard boss fighting, platforming game. So how are they going to translate that into a Netflix show?
We'll see.
We'll see. Additionally, other shows being made, a Cyberpunk 2077 show.
Yeah, dude, an anime.
Yeah. I think they said they were using like the same engine that they use for the video game, but I'm not sure. And it's set in the same world as the video game, just completely different people. And it's gonna be an anime. So
I'm in.
I'm in too, actually. Like, that's honestly, I would love if you were playing in 2077 and one of the missions you stumble into one of the characters from the show. Like, I almost guarantee one of the side missions has to be that. if they're making this whole
Probably.
show about it. But who knows?
We'll
don't.
see.
But that was something I thought was really interesting because I am really excited about that. Like,
Oh God, could you imagine what LaBelle just brought up? Some
do the bankruptcy.
actual Five Nights at Freddy's. You know, don't give Scott Coffin ideas.
I mean,
That hat has done too many fucking theories on it.
I have honestly, like, I've never played a Five Nights at Freddy's game.
Same.
And I have stopped watching Matt Pat's episodes on them because I was like, dude, I understand that this game has a huge fan base, but I'm not going to keep watching these. I was never super interested in the
I'm
first
too
place.
stuck in the main. I'm too stuck in the hold of like I'm curious enough not to play, but want to know.
Like, the thing that kind of sucks is, well, it's not sucks. I think it's, I lie in this weird space where I know I could think of at least 5 people off the top of my head who can think of really interesting stories and can have them arch across like many arcs and many different stories and timelines, and it comes out with a super fascinating story. A lot more fascinating, I think, than the Five Nights at Freddy's story. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some interesting stuff in there, and there's a lot of like soul exchanging and anger and sadness, and it can go deep, but I don't know what it is about that stuff. I don't really enjoy as much.
Yeah, I saw that they did a Banana Splits movie that was like a horror, which so weird because the Banana Splits are loved by children from a generation. I don't know if you know what the Banana Splits are.
I do not.
I remember growing up because I watched Boomerang and they would show up on Boomerang occasionally, and my mom was like, "Oh, hey, the Banana Splits! I grew up watching these." I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool." Apparently, they turned them into a horror show. Oh.
That's what I wanted to bring. I was trying to think of a reference. I was like, what the hell movie is it that was going to come out that didn't? That was a recreation of a movie, but a completely different take on it. It was Fantasy Island. Where the original take of Fantasy Island is, it's exactly what it sounds. It's an island where you get exactly what you wish for. But in this newest take of Fantasy Island that's coming out, it's a horror film. And it's...
It already came out, didn't it?
I don't know. If it was going to come out around the time that theaters were being shut down. So
Okay.
I don't know if it came out or not. I'll have to look into it. That makes sense. But no, yeah. That is a story where they completely changed the original story, but I assume it'll work out fine. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I need to see that movie, and I'll tell you about it later.
Fair enough.
And then I'll finally have an argument that's like, you can have a good movie that's not directly source material. But because
I think that's a little different.
maybe. But it'll still be an argument that could count. And for the WB thing, like, that, I'm good for him. But at the same time, that was kind of something I was always told in the first place. Was if somebody comes and talks to you about making a movie out of your properties, never go with the first offer. Because they'll take it, they'll change it, and you won't like it. So you go with the second or the third, because 1, they'll pay you more. 2, they'll listen to you more. Because they're paying you more.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm afraid about Illumination Mario movie. I'm afraid because Illumination is not my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Do you got anything else?
Next month's movies.
Yeah, here we go.
So next month, we have decided. I think we decided our theme was, just
Adaptations.
adaptations. pay a little bit of mana, and they'll adapt and gain a couple of +1/+1 counters, and that's a Magic the Gathering joke.
Shut up. No, we're talking about adaptations from other things, from TV, movies, or TV books and comics. We're starting out with Transformers: Age of Extinction and The Last Knight to continue our Transformers movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's TV show. We're doing books the week following that with Maze Runner and Artemis Fowl watching something new.
Yeah! Hooray! I bet it's not absolutely terrible.
Nope, probably not.
Not at all. Yeah.
We're not gonna buy words on that.
Then we do
following
comic
that,
books.
yeah, we're doing 2 weeks of comic books, but one's animated, one's live action. First week's the animated, where we do the Justice League, Flashpoint Paradox, Justice League War, and then Justice League Dark Apocalypse War.
I like how you spelled apocalypse. I just noticed.
That's how it's spelled.
Is it?
Yeah, that's how Apocalypse is spelled in the DC.
Okay. Thank God.
No, that's how it's spelled, asshole.
Okay.
Fuck you.
I was just thinking like actual, English. And I was like, huh, that's not apocalypse.
Dude, they gotta change it a little bit. And then the week following, we're doing some obscure comic books with Green Hornet and V for Vendetta. To round out July.
After recommending Green Hornet, we're gonna stick to this, but I almost wish we would do 300 over it, because 300 and V for Vendetta are both graphic novels.
I mean, we could change it right now.
No. I think Green Hornet is going to be funnier. Because V for Vendetta and 300 are both really take-me-serious movies. So I think having one that's a movie where they want you to take it seriously and one where it's played off as a little bit more of a joke, and you can see the two separate approaches to this, might be a good idea. See,
Fair enough.
I like the thought of, differences in movies and trying to educate people on how the movies are made and how they could be different from other films and, stuff like that. So that's what I aim for when I try to do
Fair
this
enough.
stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, so those are next month's movies, and that's it. That's all the news. We're done here.
I'm looking forward to it because we get to finally close out. I don't think I don't know if we'll return ever to that version of the Justice League universe, since there's a lot of those movies we haven't watched. From there's the Atlantis one, there's all the Teen Titan ones, there's a few Batman ones that we haven't watched. There's a Wonder Woman one.
It's just too many. I like the DC movies, and I don't all at the same time. I almost guarantee we're going to watch some of these DC movies, and once again, I'm going to complain because I'll be like, wow, they could have done so much more with the cinematography of this cartoon. But they didn't, because they had to make it in a year. So.
Yes. And they all use the same fucking studio and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I'll say, actually, no, I don't think that's going to be what we're going to run into too much with that week, except for maybe Apocalypse War. Because if my memory holds true, Flashpoint Paradox is pretty enjoyable for a movie. And then Justice League War is the start of that universe, but it's not bad. And it's got a really funny moment with Green Lantern. Multiple funny moments with Green Lantern, actually, now that I think about it. Anyways, and then we get to Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which I already have thoughts about from what I've seen.
I'm not surprised. I mean, I would hope you had thoughts about movies. That's the whole idea, right?
Har. Let's wrap it up.
All right. And just because you did it for me earlier, I'll do it for you too. They won't see it in the video, but it's there. I put the hars in chat. See, they're there. Everyone can see it. It happened. Okay.
I forgot to retweet. Whoops. Oh well.
It's okay. So, yeah, thanks everybody for being here. We talked Transformers. We got more Transformers talk to do. We're, as Dev puts it, we're going into the Marky Mark duology.
Yeah!
So, yeah, next week, Transformers. This week was Transformers. Next week is still Transformers. It's all awesome,
But
I
different.
guess. Yeah. So, thank you very much, and we will see you guys next week. So, yeah, until then.
Ah!